The shutdown cannot end until the House of Representatives, out to lunch since September 19th, comes back to work. Lawmakers are now catching flights to D.C. Good luck with that. 2 Americans caught in shutdown hardships, a federal worker who has gone weeks without pay, another a recipient of SNAP benefits who has had to rely on family and neighbors for food and money. He's 14. He's just won $100,000 as the nation's youth civics champion, and he wants to go to Yale. Meet Eric Cool. Hello, everyone. I'm Major Garrett in Washington. Welcome to the Takeout. Time to dust off the House of Representatives. It's been closed for weeks. Hope they can find the light switches. Might need to run a vacuum or two. The House, you see, must blink its eyes open, emerge from its leadership-imposed hibernation, and spring back into legislative action. You know, its very purpose for being. It must, in due course, pass the Senate compromise that reopens the government until January 30th, rehires and pays federal workers fired during the shutdown, as well as all the others with jobs and going without pay, and guarantees nutrition assistance for low-income Americans through SNAP for a full year. President Trump supports the deal. That means it has every good chance of passing the Republican-controlled House. The timing for that? About 24 hours from now. This show might be able, we hope, to provide live coverage of debate and final passage. Wouldn't that be exciting? Maybe not for you, but certainly for me. Now, there are some Republican holdouts, and there are also some Democrats who might cross over and vote for this compromise. No matter the howling, and there's a fair amount of it from the activist progressive wing of the Democratic Party. On that part of the political spectrum, post-compromise air is rent with words like betrayal, cowardice, and caving. The Senate passed deal to reopen the government last night, and in the aftermath, most lawmakers had precious little to say. Those who did speak offered relief and context.
This would not have come about without the work of so many people. Our Democratic colleagues who courageously realized that we could not let this shutdown continue to go on, with the harmful consequences growing worse with each passing day.
I refuse to monetize the outrage. We need to find a way forward because I strongly support those tax credits to make healthcare more affordable, but I just refuse to shut our government down and hold our government hostage, and that's where we are.
For what comes next, we turn to Torian Small on Capitol Hill. Torian, always great to see you. So what comes next? There's some activity tonight, right?
Yeah, so right now the Rules Committee and the House are meeting to pretty much go over what tomorrow will look like. We'll likely see a final vote on that in the 5 p.m. hour tomorrow. But as for tonight, we're seeing some potential pushback between Democrats who are strongly opposed to the bill as it came from the Senate as they make the case to the Rules Committee. Considering they're in the minority, it's unlikely they would do much to swaying the votes of the majority there, but as it stands right now, we could be well on our way to the government reopening tomorrow sometime in the evening, Major.
So you spoke about House Democrats. Our colleague, Caitlin Huey-Burns, spoke with Jim McGovern, Democrat from Massachusetts, the ranking Democrat on the House Rules Committee, where Democrats are by design severely outnumbered, for his take on where things stand. Let's take a quick listen to that.
They have a 2-to-1 majority in the Rules Committee, so either I have to be really persuasive or I have to shame them into doing the right thing. But we're going to make the case why it is unacceptable and immoral for us to proceed without dealing with the fact that millions and millions of people are about to see their health care premiums double, triple, and quadruple. Many are going to lose their health insurance entirely.
Torian, a couple of things I also want to run by you. Tomorrow, something else is supposed to happen. Congresswoman-elect Adelita Grijalva from Arizona, scheduled, as I understand it, finally to be sworn in. And have you detected so far any Republicans who are not fully on board this Senate compromise?
Yeah, so we've seen before pushback. There were just a couple of Republicans who voted against the House continuing resolution before it made its way to the Senate, that being Representative Thomas Massey. Grijalva is an interesting case. Once she's sworn in, it's likely we'll see that same Republican Massey look to force a vote or a petition to force essentially the release of the so-called Epstein files, considering that they would then have the simple majority in the Republicans who support this measure as well. But as it relates to this government shutdown, a lot of Democrats are pushing back, saying that we Democrats in the Senate essentially gave up any leverage that they had by conceding to this, saying that they agreed to a promise of a future vote of the extension of a health care tax subsidy, but it not being married to this could be a fatal flaw for them. And considering the fact House Speaker Mike Johnson himself said that he wouldn't commit to bringing it to the House floor for a vote, Democrats are saying they lost this fight for now, but they will go on to fight another day. That's at least according to the words of Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader.
Torian Small on Capitol Hill. It's a very important point you made there just at the end. House Speaker Mike Johnson said the debate over future health care changes will be deliberative. That's code for it's going to be a long, long time before we get to that. Torian Small on Capitol Hill, thanks so much. Earlier, I spoke with California Democratic Congressman Mike Levin about the shutdown and related matters. Take a listen. The House will vote tomorrow on the Senate-passed compromise. Congressman, are you yes or no?
I'm a hard no, Major, and I am really disappointed that this bill that is coming to the House does nothing to address the looming healthcare crisis for millions and millions of people, many of whom I spoke with in these past weeks back in the district in San Diego. Their healthcare premiums in some cases are tripling or even worse. I spoke to a 62-year-old retired teacher who is trying to figure out whether he needs to take early Social Security to pay for the $700 a month in new healthcare costs. I spoke to another working mom whose bills are going to double, self-employed, for her and her family, up to over $55,000 a year. So this bill does nothing to address this. It's incredibly disappointing, and I'll be a firm no.
Do you suspect it will pass?
If the past is any prologue, then what happened in March could happen again, which is the bill passes on a purely partisan vote with little or no Democratic support. I've learned not to bet on anything happening in D.C., but if I had to tell you one way or the other, I think it will pass on a highly partisan, if not completely partisan basis.
On this program last night, one of your California delegation Democratic colleagues, Ro Khanna, said it is time for Chuck Schumer, the Democratic leader in the Senate, to go. Do you agree?
Well, it's up to the Senate, but I said if I were, a Senate Democrat, I think it's time for new leadership, yes. And I think at the end of the day, Schumer did not meet this moment. I think he either could not or would not keep his caucus united. And I don't know which of the two it is, but in any event, it's a real problem, Major. And you contrast it within the House, where Hakeem Jeffries and Catherine Clark, Pete Aguilar, they kept us incredibly unified in the House. And I'm very proud to be a member of the House Democratic Caucus.
If you are asked, will you be honest with your constituents and say this deal is something in which the Democrats who fought all this time got nothing?
What I will tell them is that it's important that we have the government open, but it's also important that we address the healthcare needs of millions of people. And this bill failed to do that. So absolutely, I'll be honest about what was and what wasn't in this bill. There are 3 Senate appropriations bills in there for important things for our region, like military construction and veterans affairs. Interestingly, I'm an appropriator, and I'm supposed to be on the conference committee that's supposed to take that Senate bill and the partisan bill that passed in the House and reconcile the two. But that process has not occurred, nor do I expect it to occur. When I was put on that conference committee, I remember asking our ranking member in the House, is it a real conference committee or a fake conference committee? Seems to be a fake conference committee. But the so-called deal leaves so much to be desired. And of course, now we have learned that it includes some ridiculous provisions to help Republican senators who want to sue and get money for having their phone records investigated by Jack Smith in connection with January 6th. So, what else are we going to learn about what's in this thing? From what we know, it's a raw deal. It's bad for the American people who are really needing help and are in a very hard spot when it comes to the cost of living. And healthcare costs are a huge concern for millions and millions of people. And again, for the Republicans, they really have no plan other than to put everybody on high deductible junk plans. And Trump, saying that he wants to give money back to the average person. Where's their Doge refund check? Where's the tariff refund check? It's preposterous. It's not going to happen.
What adjectives would you use, Congressman, to describe the Senate Democrats who did vote for this deal?
Disappointing. I think it was capitulation. And the lesson I also took from it, Major, is that this past Tuesday we had huge victories across the country, in California, of course, with Prop 50, but in New Jersey and Virginia and Pennsylvania. And I think the lesson that I took from that is that we need to stand and fight for the things that matter to the average person. We were sent to Washington, D.C. to fight for people who need the help, whether on health care or on so many other things. Meanwhile, you had the administration withholding food for those in need, using whatever leverage they could, literally using people's hunger as leverage. Every available piece of evidence suggested that more Americans blamed President Trump and the House and Senate Republicans for the state of affairs as opposed to the Democrats. I think that those senators that voted yes on this should have known better.
Mike Levin, Congressman from California, Democrat. I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Good to be with you. Thank you, Major.
Still to come, from lost paychecks to empty plates, people losing out on the essentials because of the prolonged government shutdown. Question, are federal agents breaking the law in their own procedures when it comes to how they're handling protesters at immigration actions? Our exclusive investigation on those tactics. And on this Veterans Day, how dogs are helping military members when they return from the battlefield. The Takeout returns in 90 seconds. Welcome back to the Takeout. So, the government shutdown looks like it's going to be ending, longest ever, and it has inflicted harm on millions of Americans in the intervening time. Two of them join me now. Imelda Avila Thomas, furloughed employee for the Department of Labor. Wendy Ho, recipient of Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program benefits, that's known as SNAP. The Trump administration, by the way, still currently battling in court not to pay full SNAP benefits during the shutdown for however much longer it lasts. Imelda, thank you so much for joining us. Walk me through what this shutdown has meant for your life personally.
Well, the first couple of days, it was just adjusting to it. I'm president of Local 2139 for the American Federation of Government Employees, and I represent some of the Department of Labor's, I think, most essential employees, OSHA, MSHA. So, it has felt like our livelihoods, they're not political playthings, and we're neighbors, veterans, public servants who we've been paying the price now, for 42 days. What felt like a few days just turned into weeks and months, and it's just uncertainty, definitely.
And no paycheck, right?
No paycheck.
And what has that meant for you as you've tried to make ends meet in this period of time of, as you just described it, massive uncertainty?
It has created definitely a shift in my family. And, there was a lot of, during my first couple of conversations, the judging of, well, you should know better, there should be savings. And the reality is, yes, of course we do, but I shouldn't have to go into debt because of something that I didn't cause. And, ideally, it would be, I'm available, I'm willing. We've been wanting to go back to work from day one because we know how deep this affects the American people. The services we provide are essential, and us not being at work is just the backlog that's waiting for us. And each day that we go without being there available for the American public is just such harm.
Imelda, you're joining me from San Antonio. Wendy, I want to talk to you. You're joining us from New York City. SNAP benefits, something you and your family rely upon. Walk me through what their absence has meant for you day to day.
It's been very difficult. I'm retired, so my Social Security that I usually pay my bills with, we had to, some bills had to go unpaid so we could eat. I mean, fortunately, I have other means. My children are older, and they both work, so they helped me also. But it was still a traumatic experience because everything I take from them, they have a budget as well as I have a budget. So it affected their budget as well. And listening to the young lady, I'm really upset that someone would even say, oh, you should have savings. Living in this country is so expensive that a lot of times when you do try to save $20, $30, $40, it is difficult. I try to do that myself, even though I'm retired. I still want to have some kind of savings. But if we have a presidency that goes back and forth and they use the American people as they hold them hostage, like how are you supposed to save? How are you supposed to feel comfortable living here in this country where it just feels like we're pawns? And I was listening to your program while I was sitting here waiting for my turn to speak. And if they pass that bill, that's going to do more damage because the people that are working now, they're going to have to pay maybe 2 and 3 times more of their money for insurance, which insurance is high enough. So there are going to be people that are not going to be able to go to the doctor because it's going to be too expensive. What does that mean for Medicaid? There's going to be cuts all around. So people are going to be dying simply because they cannot go to the doctor and get the basic checkup that they need because their premiums are too high. I'm really ashamed of this presidency. I really am, because
Wendy,
to me it does not seem like they care about the people. Yes.
I want to ask you, in the last couple of weeks, when you have asked, as I'm sure you have, about the availability of SNAP benefits, what have you heard either at the state level or at the local level? Has it been confusing for you?
I haven't heard anything. And if you try to call them, all you get is a busy signal.
Oh, well, all right, that's,
there's nobody there.
There's no life hack for a busy signal, in case anyone's curious about that.
Exactly.
Imelda, for you and your colleagues, you are anticipating, I presume, the shutdown ending and receiving back pay. Does that remedy this situation?
Well, we'll be thankful for it. However, for some, it's a little too late. They've had to go to work without that pay, so a lot of them had to borrow money. We have people working without getting paid, parking, tolls, and things of that nature. So while it's, we're grateful for it, and we were promised that when we were furloughed, it's a little late for some of these people. I myself went to a food bank and I helped some of my coworkers, and I never thought I'd be at that, in that place. I want to be providing assistance, not taking assistance from others. But that's where I was at. So, that's unfortunate.
Imelda, Avila, Thomas, Wendy Ho, thank you very much for your voices, your perspective, and I hope you get on the other side of this just as rapidly as possible. Thanks for your time. Tensions grow between President Trump and one of his historically strongest allies, why he says Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene has, quote, lost her way. More on that next here on The Takeout. Welcome back to The Takeout. Republicans here in Washington, they remained largely united during the shutdown. Longtime Trump ally, though, Marjorie Taylor Greene, kind of a surprising voice of dissent, at least at the margins. And that's caught the attention of President Trump. Here he was describing what he now sees in MTG.
I don't know what happened to Marjorie. She's a nice woman, but I don't know what happened. She's lost her way, I think.
Lost her way. Two people who have not lost their way because they found the way to the Takeout studio. Jaime Moore served as director for the office of then DNC Chair Jamie Harrison, former RNC person, Kevin Sheridan, lots of other hats. Kevin, I want to get to the hats you used to wear because you've been through more than one or two shutdowns. You know they must end, and you know, because you experienced this on the hard right, those who want the shutdown, those who preach shutdown are always super angry when it ends. And what we're seeing on the left now is a direct reflection of that movie you once saw.
Yeah, I think we have a winner for the most cynical and dumbest shutdown ever, probably topping the cruise shutdown of a decade ago, where everybody predicted the ending. There was no mystery. All it did was cause pain for federal workers,
variable was how many
the American
days?
people. And this one screwed up air traffic.
Why do you call it cynical?
Because the only reason to do this, the only plausible reason to do this was to either piss off the federal workers in Northern Virginia to get them out to the polls, or to protect Chuck Schumer from a primary against AOC. I don't see any other reason for it. There was no benefit to it. Everybody predicted how it was going to end, and it ended that way.
Yeah.
Look, I was talking to people in Leader Jeffers' team, and they think that they made a point. They think that health care is still the fight for Democrats going into 2026. And so what they're saying,
push that to the top of the consciousness of the American
and that's
public.
what they think. They think even though Republicans and 8 Democrats voted to move on without making health care a priority, they believe that politically they can still make the case next year that this is going to be a big thing.
They've teed up the midterms.
Yeah, exactly. But to your point about Chuck Schumer, I do think that Senator Schumer is in trouble in some ways. I think he's going to at some point decide not to be the leader of the party in that way. I don't think he's going to decide to not run for re-election. But AOC, who's in the House, she's using this moment to make some points herself.
But Republicans were never going to be able to avoid the health care discussion anyway, because it's a date-based thing. You know, they got to find some fix at the end of the year. They're not going
to do with expiring Obamacare.
But they're also not going to tax trillions of dollars in new spending to just throw at
it. It can become a repel and replace situation again. I think if President Trump, and he's a good gamesman, if he understands that, I think he's going to instruct the Republicans to come up with some plan that the American people can actually decide on. But repel and replace is not the way for Republicans right now.
That is the president's favorite phrase, by the way, some plan.
Yeah.
We don't ever see it, but he does say those words over and over again, some plan. Kevin, what's the Marjorie Taylor Greene of all this?
I make nothing out of it. Look, they'll probably be seen at Mar-a-Lago having dinner over the holidays. She's hardcore MAGA, but like she had a little bit of a disagreement. That's not. I don't.
When she says that the Republican conference in the House is not open to, and she said this in many venues, letting women increase their visibility and their power within the Republican conference, and she sort of said that this affordability issue with health care is legit and Republicans need to address it. Is that wandering from MAGA or just giving it a slightly different cast?
Well, she also went on The View, and that's probably what he's really talking about. No, she's been making all sorts of noises. She's been
very envious of the show, The View, by the way.
She's been doing the circuit.
Yeah. Deservedly so. They should be very envious.
Yeah.
She's got a unique perspective, and she hates what the health care, when she was running a business, what health care premiums did to her business when they went up under Obamacare, and she's going to make that case.
Yeah. I think she's making a fair point, and I think the thing that to think about for this woman, this congresswoman, she's thinking about the future. At the end of the day, even though Donald Trump is head of the MAGA party right now, he's a lame duck president. He will not run again. He will not seek a second term, and so a third term. So I think she's thinking about that, and she is making sure, to your point, she's building out the infrastructure and policy of the MAGA agenda, not just pushing forward Donald Trump, but there are real affordability issues that she's speaking to.
Do you think she thinks she has any future as a potential Speaker of the House or somewhere?
I've never heard her say that, but she has been very critical of the current Speaker.
That's what I mean.
She's out there hitting Johnson all the time. So I don't know who knows? With this caucus, anybody could be a speaker.
So one thing that's going to happen once the House comes back, in addition to dealing with ending the government shutdown, is eventually, it appears the numbers exist, to authorize a discharge petition and force the House vote on the Epstein files. Yeah. That seems to me to be a slightly volatile...
Which will do what to release the Epstein files? Nothing.
Please explain.
Nothing. The president's not going
to... Meaning the Senate has to do it as well.
The Senate has to do it, and the president has to sign it. And
so it's not going to happen.
They both said this is a distraction. Leave it alone.
And look, I think it is an opportunity for...
Does that take the politics away from it and the volatility?
Right. There's going to be an angry segment of the right and the left that are going to constantly bring up Epstein, and there's just nothing you can do about it unless you're going to release absolutely everything, which
the Justice Department could do, and so could the Treasury Department.
Yeah, and they've been resistant for whatever reason.
Jaime, do you think this is a potentially bothersome political issue for Republicans in the next
I think
few weeks?
Yeah, Major. I think we have proof positive, and we just saw what happened a couple of months ago when we spent 3-4 weeks talking about this. The president's approval ratings went down, the House approval ratings went down, the Senate, and so I think it does not behoove Republicans to continue this conversation. But look, Democrats are having a tough couple of days with what's going on in the Capitol right now.
There's plenty of Democrats in those files.
I don't think that Democrats will have a problem continuing this conversation. Robert Garcia, the congressman, has been on TV.
He is the ranking Democrat on the House Oversight Committee.
Correct. And so I think he's using this as a setup for when Democrats do take the House back next year. There are going to be many investigations around this. This is not the last we're going to hear about this Epstein thing. And so I think to the president's point, he should try to find a way to bring a conclusion to this, whatever it may be.
One of the things that Washington does is not actually things, but it sets up things to talk about things. Healthcare, Epstein, fall into that category. Hyman Moore, Kevin Sheridan, I appreciate the time. As always, remember the candy does not eat itself, so take some before you leave. From chokeholds to pepper spray, CBS News has reviewed hundreds of videos of what appear to be immigration agents violating use of force policies and doing so when encountering protesters. More on that investigation when we come back. Welcome back to Takeout. Thanks for hanging out with us. Here is a look at what else we and now you are watching this evening. A Utah judge has issued a ruling that could boost the Democrats' chances at winning a congressional seat in Utah. The ruling, which caught our eye, rejected new congressional district lines drawn by Republican state lawmakers and instead approved a new map drawing a solidly Democratic seat with voters from Salt Lake City. The ruling, it could be a blow for Republicans who had designed a map to protect the state's all GOP congressional delegation. House Budget Committee Chairman Congressman Jody Arrington, who has left a tie on the golden takeout tie rack, by the way, is a Republican from West Texas. He announced today he will not seek re-election in 2026. Arrington has been in the House since 2017, led the Budget Committee since 2023. He is the 21st House Republican to announce plans to retire or seek another office at the end of this Congress. A CBS News review of hundreds of videos of federal agents confronting protesters during and around immigration enforcement actions finds several instances where those agents appear to violate federal policies on the use of force. Nicole Skenga discussed the footage with both a former federal agent and a current U.S. Customs and Border Protection commander as part of this exclusive investigation. Please watch.
So to have these rounds impact someone in the face, in the head, in the neck, runs the risk of serious injury, death, or unintentional consequences. My professional assessment is that they are elevating the force to a degree that is excessive.
We sat down with the commander-at-large of the operation, Gregory Bavino, just a few feet away from where this incident actually happened, to ask him directly about his federal agents' actions.
Chief, I do want to show you some of what I'm talking about. I'm curious if that is proper use of force.
Sure, absolutely. The use of that less lethal device, a pepper ball, was absolutely in line with policy, and I applaud them for protecting that federal facility there.
Aiming above the waist is within policy?
It can be. If someone strays into a pepper ball, then that's on them. Don't protest and don't trespass.
Nicole Skenga joins me now. Don't protest?
Don't trespass. If someone strays into a pepper ball, that's on them. Those are the words of Commander-at-Large Gregory Bavino, who
essentially
ran this
saying
operation.
that person in the video walked into a fired pepper ball.
That is what the Commander-at-Large said, Major.
Right. So when he said to you, yes, it's consistent with policy, does that mean there's new policy? That there is a new way that those who are carrying out either defense or actions have been told they can operate?
On paper, Major, no. In practice, yes.
Okay.
Now, we combed through...
And that was the whole point of looking through all these video evidence.
We combed through hundreds and hundreds of videos, dozens of hours worth. And what we looked for wasn't just one-offs. It was patterns that show time and time again federal agents going against DHS policy and a federal court order in Chicago as part of this Operation Midway Blitz, as it's been dubbed. And what we found was not only firing pepper balls into faces, the upper body from elevation, we also saw deployment of CS gas, pepper spray, tear gas in close proximity, some as close as you and I are sitting here, Major, and without any warning. We saw unmarked cars being used to move people, and we also saw a display of physical force and, in some cases, chokeholds, which DHS considers to be legal. Now, any law enforcement officer will tell you, including Eric Ballier, who you saw we spoke with, longtime career HSI and ICE agent.
And he's the one who that started off saying this looks like it violates policy.
Absolutely, and his own training. Anyone will tell you that you only use these tactics if there is an imminent risk of danger. And the frequency at which we've seen these aggressive tactics deployed in the neighborhoods in and around Chicago not only puts demonstrators' lives at risk, not only puts undocumented migrants' lives at risk, but it actually puts at risk the lives of law enforcement officers who are doing this job every day.
Have there been any repercussions, investigations, suspensions, anything like that?
We asked Gregory Bovino, the commander, that very question, and he acknowledged to us that no, there has been no one who has been disciplined at CBP, at ICE in connection to Operation Midway Blitz as of yet. He also said he feels like every single agent has acted well within policy. We heard from his boss, President Trump, on 60 Minutes, who said he believes ICE agents have not gone far enough. Now, on paper, any excessive use of force at DHS is supposed to at least face administrative consequences, if not criminal penalties, if it's found to be lethal, specifically in the case of using, say, cars as lethal force, spraying pepper balls, as we saw, into faces. Again, any less than lethal force, Major, can become lethal if it is misused. But we have not seen any indication of DHS pushing back. And the fear that Eric Ballier and others have is if there is no pushback, someone might get hurt or worse. And we've already seen federal agents open fire on demonstrators. We've already seen demonstrators open fire on federal agents. So the temperature is already pretty high, Major.
We've watched the video. We've told you what it shows. We've asked the questions, and we're going to continue to follow this story. Nicole Sganga, excellent work. Thank you so very much. They're furry friends with a kind of important mission, actually really, really important mission. How one organization is helping train service dogs to help veterans with disabilities pursue the next chapter. The group's president and one of their canine companions joins me next here on The Takeout.
On Veterans Day, we honor those who have worn the uniform, who have borne the battle, who have stood to watch and whose ranks have formed the mighty wall of flesh and blood, bravery and devotion that has defended our freedom for 250 years.
President Trump marking this Veterans Day at Arlington National Cemetery. Tonight, we thought it was an appropriate moment, Veterans Day, to spotlight those helping our troops after they return from service. Here with me now, John Miller. He is the president and CEO of America's Vet Dogs, which helps our veterans when they return home. Sitting beside him, an absolutely gorgeous 3-year-old lab named Luke. John, tell me your story, and how does Luke and other service dogs like Luke fit into it?
Sure. So America's Vet Dogs works in all 50 states to provide service dogs for veterans and first responders. Luke here is one of our spokes dogs, actually. Luke is representative of all the different services, that America's Vet Dogs can provide and the different tasks, that the dogs can do. We had the great fortune of working with former President George H.W. Bush and provided him his service dog, Sully, a number of years ago. And the amount of good that did to shine a light on the services that are available, not just for the president, but all veterans. So we're very happy to be here today on Veterans Day.
What do dogs do, John, uniquely that humans, despite their best efforts, can't do?
I think it's just a genuine, instinct and genuine love, right? Unconditional love. And, our dogs are really, some of the finest trained. Luke may take a little snooze on us here. He's had a little bit of a long day today, but he's one of the finest trained dogs in the country right now.
And how do the dogs that you deal with, John, and your organization get into your system? How are they dealt with first so people know what they're getting when they receive a service dog?
Sure. So the application is a very simple application. You just go to vetdogs.org to apply. We ask questions about your lifestyle, if you're working, what you're going to utilize the dog for, and really try to mitigate a disability. And then the dogs can be trained up to 30 different tasks, to do that. One of the most popular tasks, or one of the most requested tasks, is something called nightmare interruption, where we teach the dog to sense a veteran who's having a night terror and to gently wake them up and get them out of that moment.
Wow, go into that a little bit more, John. That sounds like a very particular kind of skill, one that I imagine has evolved in your awareness of, and then you had to create ways for which you could, quote unquote, train dogs to help out with.
Yeah, exactly. It's a lot of repetition. All of our training is what we call positive reinforcement, so it's food motivated. So it's repetition, and the dogs are getting treats and rewards each time they do a task. Nightmare interruption, we try to teach the dogs, to nudge on the hip or on the side to try to get the veteran out of that moment. And then ultimately, they get to clear their heads and, maybe start fresh.
And what do you hear back from vets 6 months, a year, 2 years after having a service dog?
Yeah, it's a complete, nonstop progression. The longer that people have the dog, the more they acclimate to their family. And it becomes a member of the family, even though the dog is specifically trained for the veteran. He's really helping, unify the whole family. And really, when you look at it, people come to us sometimes when they're in a very dark place. Some, have suicidal thoughts. And ultimately, we are in the suicide prevention business, and it's very serious what we do, but the dogs really are an incredible way, to put families and lives back together.
John, talk to me about the supply and the demand curve.
Sure. So, since Sully, the demand far outweighs the supply. And we're working diligently throughout our organization to increase our capacity to do more. We're looking to grow our ability to do more dogs by 25% over the next few years. And ultimately, we want to be able to get the word out to every veteran who needs a dog. So I'd encourage every veteran who thinks they may need a dog to go to vetdogs.org and apply today.
And John, I got about 35 seconds. You guys have been at this for a long time. Very briefly summarize your origin story.
Sure. So Guide Dog Foundation really started America's Vet Dogs about 25 years ago at this point almost. And the organization saw a need beyond vision impairment to help veterans. Mobility, and now certainly probably the most requested task is PTSD mitigation.
That's great stuff. And Luke, as I said, a 3-year-old lab. If he's taking a nap, just know, John, that's not your fault. That's not the long day's fault. I have that effect on most living beings. John Miller, I appreciate the time. Thanks so very much, and happy Veterans Day. So, how much do you know about how government works, rights and responsibilities of citizens? That basic civic stuff. Maybe not as much as my next guest, who just won the National Civics Bee and will join me fresh off that big victory. Next here on The Takeout. Welcome back to The Takeout. Middle schoolers from across the country gathered in Washington this week for a multi-day competition showcasing their knowledge of civics. Earlier today, I sat down with the winner of this year's National Civics Bee, 14-year-old Erit Cool. Please listen. First, congratulations. Second, how does it feel?
It feels really awesome. I never thought I could do this, but I feel great. Really excited.
You've done this twice before, so the third time is the charm. What did you do better this time than you did the previous 2 times, do you think?
I learned a lot from my last time here at Nationals, and I really put in a lot of perseverance and a lot of effort into my preparing, and that definitely paid off a lot.
What gets you excited about studying civics? What do you think its overall value is?
I think understanding civics and studying civics gives every citizen the belief that they can make a difference in our republic, and it's really enabled me to go out in the community and engage and really make a positive difference.
Do you want to have a life in politics?
I aspire to be an attorney in the future, and that's something the prize money will really help pay for.
Let's talk about the prize money, $100,000.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fair amount. That will put you on a path, you believe?
Correct.
A path to where? Do you have any? I know you're 14. It's a bit early, but do you have any aspirational places of higher education in mind?
My dream school would be Yale, but I'm working as hard as I can, and I do better every day and try to get to that.
You're not alone. Yale's a good place, dream school for many. Those of us who never got to Yale standards only can sort of look at it from a distance. Teachers matter in my life. I know teachers mattered in your life. Give us a name check on the teacher who inspired you in this direction.
So in 2023, my sixth grade social studies teacher, Mrs. Abel, was really the key encourager, and she really motivated me to be a part of the Civics Bee when it was just first starting off. I personally wasn't going to submit it. I was like, I don't know what the amendments are. I don't know any laws and acts or cases. I'm just really unprepared. But despite all of that, she supported me to this day, and she really encouraged me to be a part of it, which now I really do appreciate.
I'm going to give you a hard question. You can go back in time and have dinner with George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, or Alexander Hamilton. Who do you choose?
I would choose George Washington because, not just because he was the first president, but I want to understand really his inspiration, his thinking behind setting so many important precedents and really inspiring generations to come.
When you talk to your friends, do they look up to you or wonder why you are so civic obsessed?
Initially, it was, why were you a part of this? What's fun about doing this? But after they've seen me grow and do all of this and become more engaged in civics also, I think they really do appreciate it, and we all work together and have a lot of discussions at the lunch table.
So what's next for you? This is obviously something you've been working for. It's a goal. It's now achieved. In your year 15, year 16, year 17, before you get to Yale, what's next on the ladder?
I would definitely like to keep working on my idea of improving the healthcare system in the United States and keep moving towards that goal. And that could include talking to my representative, my senator, and really starting community initiatives that are focused toward my solutions.
Right, and you built your essay and your presentation around improving healthcare in America. Why did you choose that?
So the United States spends nearly 18% of its GDP on healthcare, which is a lot. And by spending that much, you would think there are good results and people are happy, but that is in fact not the case. And many people, unfortunately, don't have access to care or simply put it off because it's too unaffordable.
Do you have experience with that in your life, or is this just something you are curious about from an academic point of view?
So initially, my inspiration to go down this was a medical bill we received last year, and I saw my dad talk to the insurance company, the hospital, and how that really all played out was first what got me into this, and then my curiosity led me down a lot of different articles, and I learned more about the broken system.
So this is going to play on YouTube and Instagram and lots of places. Let's say there's a 9 or 8 or 7-year-old who comes across this. What do you want them to know about your civics journey and what they might be able to accomplish?
I think that even if you're on the fence of doing the Civics Bee or you're simply not aware of all of these things, intimidated by this big study guide, I think this is something that even if you don't win per se, it's something that really gives you a lot of learning experience, a lot of practical things, and this knowledge that's really essential for every American's future and how we can preserve our republic going forward.
Eric Cool is your name. Your surname tells us, and from my perspective, what you also are. Cool when it comes to civics. Eric, congratulations. Thanks for the time.
Thank you.
Happy Tuesday, everyone. This is The Takeout. Relentlessly curious, reliably civil, occasionally clever. The Daily Report starts now.